mistakenly are on the verge of a topic that couldn't be more relevant as we stand on the verge of a transformative change with AI and automation redefining the entire future of work. These technologies are not just about automating repetitive tasks, but also about enabling smarter decision making and also for fostering groundbreaking innovation. For GCCs, especially, this shift means going beyond just operational excellence to entirely reimagining the workforce strategies that focus now on high value and innovation driven roles. It is completely evident that GCCs are rapidly transforming from being mere cost efficient centers into now what we term as reinvention engines. The strategic importance of GCCs, as being mentioned previously as well, is completely growing as organizations are now looking towards AI to stay ahead, build strong partnerships, and redefine traditional roles in today's digital world. For them, success will depend on how well they adapt, integrate these advancements, and position themselves as global hubs for AI-driven innovation. Without further ado, this panel is going to be very interesting, and I will place the ball in my panelist's court. Mohit, let you draw the first blood. How is GCC utilizing AI and automation to improve, say, decision-making across functions and businesses?
Sure. So firstly, thank you for having me on the panel. I'll just give you a quick prelude earlier. We are at a very good intersection point when you look at science or life sciences and technology, right? Now, traditionally, life sciences has been two branches, which is biology and chemistry. And very clearly, we are seeing now the third branch, which is computer science, coming in and helping out. And I'll explain that with a couple of examples. So while we all know that the whole word AI really came up in the 1950s or 55 or so, but what has really happened is the breakthrough has happened in the last 10 years. And that's where the breakthrough has happened in the compute power. Because these mathematical problems always existed, but we never had the compute power to solve it, right? Now, what are we trying to solve with this? At the end of the day, if you look at the human body, on an average, we probably all have around 20 to 50 trillion cells in our body. And that's at the atomic level. If you look at it, that's probably 5 to 7 quadrillion atoms that you have. Now, why is this important? Because at the end of the day, a disease is caused when one of those gets placed outside. When something goes wrong with one of your cells is where the problem or a disease starts occurring, right? And at the same time, when you fix it, you also get better. Now, when you start looking at this, the broad spectrum of compute power that is required to analyze this information, that never existed before in the scale and size that we wanted. And that is where the big opportunity comes in from an AI perspective to look at. Now, what are we looking at from our perspective is, I'll take a simple example because Gen AI has been a very prevalent topic, right? So what is Gen AI? Is really generating information or data or text that did not exist. Now, if you take a life cycle of a little bit of a pharma company, we do research, we do development of the drug, we commercialize the drug, and then we manufacture the drug and we also commercialize the drug, right? Now, in our drug discovery process or development process, actually, this is where a lot of the clinical trials happen. And on average, any pharma company spends 9 years in different phases, typically 3 phases of the clinical trial to solve for this. Now, as part of the clinical trial, a lot of time has been focused on building documentation that is given to different stakeholders, from the scientist to the FDAs, to the patient, to the clinicians. Now, if you look at the spectrum of these 4 pools of people, it's a very different spectrum of information and knowledge that you have to give to them. A patient wants to understand something in plain English, whereas the scientist wants to give you something with the most complicated, biological terms that they can think of. Where we have found a lot of success is there's a protocol document, which is a master document that we create, from where we create a consent form that we give to the patients to really say, hey, you're signing up for this trial to do these things. Now, that consent form typically would take good 6 to 8 weeks. Now, with using Gen AI, we can able to create that consent form in minutes. And we just have to upload the consent form and say, guys, take this biological terms, make it simple for anybody to understand. These consent forms are Word documents. Then a nurse in a particular clinic will take that consent form, put it into a PPT to show it to the patient. the patient will look at it and say, now I understand what you're trying to tell me. Now, this whole thing was typically a 6 to 8 weeks process, now able to do it in minutes, and you can just upload it into a Gen AI capability and deliver that.
So ease of access and reduction of time as well.
Perfect. And the key is, the biggest important piece for us is the patient centricity, right? All we care about is the patient understanding what they're signing up for, because there are lives at stake, and that's the important piece here.
So makes you responsible, enables responsibility and ease of access. And absolutely, optimization. Thank you, Mohit, for that detailed explanation. Vikram, moving on to you. How has automation alongside AI for you contributed to delivering value not just to business, but also improve, say, customer service or employee satisfaction, or also bring in quality for that matter?
Thank you, Vaishnavi, and thank you and the Economics Times team for having me on this panel and address this topic, as the MC called it, the drawing the elephant out in the room, right? Very fascinating. I'll just quickly set some context about Visa's GCC in India, and then I'll answer a question. Our GCC in India is based in Bengaluru. We are a few thousand strong. Roughly at 25% of our global tech workforce is in Bangalore. We are about 10 years building mission-critical products, platforms. And today, Bangalore is Visa's largest office and largest technology center. So with that context, your question around automation and employee satisfaction, productivity, I think our journey with AI began almost 30 years ago when we implemented the first few models in payment processing. And from that on, just in this last decade, we've invested about $3 billion in AI and data infrastructure. And what this investment and the last two events of the last 2 years has meant, that AI is now deeply embedded in every aspect of Visa's business. Whether it's about how we serve our customers, or what products we build for them, how we build and operate our technology, or even how we collaborate. Every aspect of Visa is now getting deeply transformed by AI. Just a few examples. You asked about customer service. Last year, we announced a new tool called Visa Assist. Visa, like Mohit was talking about, has a lot of documentation that we release about how to implement Visa, how to integrate with Visa. All of this documentation is now available through Visa Assist, which in minutes you can understand about our technical specifications, our transaction processing rules, our interchange rates, etc. And then that information is at people's fingertips 24/7. And we are getting great feedback. Now, if you look inwards about how are we developing technology and operating technology, that's been completely transformed in the last couple of years, where now every employee in Visa Bengaluru and Visa globally has the latest GenAI development tools, software development tools. And on the other side, our tech ops colleagues are now implementing GenAI powered incident resolution systems, where something that would take us minutes is now, the information is available to us in a matter of minutes. So that's how we are changing technology development and operations. And finally, our employee satisfaction and productivity. Now every Visa employee globally has the latest developer productivity tools, collaboration tools, and that's just about the productivity. But GenAI is also getting deeply embedded into other key business processes. For example, our Salesforce team is now helped by an AI buddy. That buddy helps you prepare for that key conversation that's coming up with the client with, hey, here is the previous interactions with the client. Here is the fact sheets about the products that the client is interested in. So that's about Salesforce automation powered by GenAI. And finally, another example is our contracts. I think we are all in this room can imagine how complicated contracts can get. But because of GenAI, we're now having our legal and finance folks have an AI agent that looks at contracts and validates the pricing rules in it and ensures that we are saying the right things and doing the right things. So I think our tagline is Visa is everywhere you want us to be. I think I would say AI is everywhere in Visa, helping us be everywhere we want to be.
Perfect. Thank you, Vikram. Chandan, coming to you. In the recent years, Applied has made some significant investments and contribution to semiconductor R&D in labs, which now has become so pivotal to developing AI as well. What role has AI played now in advancing research and development for your GCC?
Hey, thanks for the question and thanks for having me in the panel. Just to give a bit of background about Applied Materials, we have been in India for the last 20 years or so, and it's a continuous investment in product R&D, development of equipments for the semiconductor manufacturing space, and at the same time, we continue to invest in terms of building capabilities to accelerate product development and even commercialization. Having said that, yes, both Mohit and Vikram spoke about all the nice things about AI. Let me start with this question of, is AI always right? Definitely not. It hallucinates a lot. I think we all have heard this a bit about. I'm sure there are many articles which you can read about. Having said that it hallucinates, what can we do differently? So for me, the mantra is adoption. Unless as a company, if you not look at adopting AI, you wouldn't learn about what are the pitfalls. So let me give you some examples of complexities and also how we look at we look at these things. Especially in semiconductor manufacturing, in the semiconductor ecosystem, there are like 3 key spaces. One is the semiconductor process. I'm sure people here have either used iPhone latest version or the earlier versions. What you have today is basically a 3 nanometer process. And what was there just 1.5 years ago was actually 5 nanometer process. So that means there is an accelerated innovation in process of how do we add more computing to the answer that Mohit had. We need more and more computing power. So that's basically where AI can come in. So when we talk about the process areas, there is a lot of AI applicability that companies looking at. When we talk about defect detection through inspection process, there is a lot of AI that is required. In essence, I'm trying to say that there is a holistic way of how AI can be adopted in various areas. It's not like there is one solution that I can start with and it will work everywhere. I can give you a very simple example. If you ask most of the folks here are software. If you ask your software engineer, hey, can you please generate this code through Copilot? I'm sure that person will be the happiest. Now he need not go to Google and figure out where the code base is and see if he can bring it or not. It's a lot easier. But then what happens if you bring in that code into your IP sensitive area and that actually can land you in trouble? So how many of the engineers who are trained to use Copilot understand this? So adoption with clear understanding of pitfalls is a key thing across the GCC that we are looking at. How we can secure the data of our customers, and again, a very key area. For semiconductors, security of customers' data is of utmost importance, and we invest a lot in this. And here, again, you cannot really just enable anybody to access this data. So towards that point, I want to say knowledge assist AI. I'm not really specifying just one tool, but a knowledge assist AI which has all the information of your product, manuals, and data, and can assist your engineers to do product R&D. I mean, we are a product R&D house. We build products which has software, hardware coming in from mechanical, electrical, all engineers. And they need quick decisions to be made when there is a problem or when they are designing something. And here, a knowledge assist AI can be wonderful. And that too, if it is driven by the domain understanding. So again, the new thing of, yes, you need to have domain. Will the Salesforce model work for me? Not sure. You need to have the domain expertise built into your model, otherwise it again hallucinates. So in essence, productivity through AI tools has been the mantra at this point in time. I mean, not that it is there everywhere, but then yes, in a very careful manner, where we can enter and how we can leverage it.
Thank you, Chandan. Thank you so much. Gauri, coming to you, Accenture's Technology Vision 2025 highlights clearly that large language models are now being integrated with robotics, thereby creating opportunities beyond just software automation. So how as Accenture are you helping organizations navigate this particular shift? And are there any impactful use cases that you have seen emerge out of this?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me here. For
Pleasure.
those of you who do not know about Accenture's tech vision, as a technology company, we come with a futuristic view on how technology is going to emerge. Last year we talked about, how AI is going to challenge the human potential, whereas, this year we are talking about what is going to limit AI from taking the full potential of AI itself. And the key theme that is emerging is trust. So Mohit talked about computing power. We talked about product. Now, if you take the product to a consumer for consumption, do the consumer trust it? Is there emotion in terms of how they are interacting with an agent or a human? And whether you are getting the gene of the organization that the agents represent. So you can't have a Costco or a Walmart or a Target talk in the same language in the same manner mechanically with their consumers, right? So the AI has to evolve into a situation where they represent the company culture and in the employees that they're talking about. And in the context of GCC, it becomes more important because a lot of our GCC clients are also building the talent culture, the parent culture in the setup in India, right? So we are working interestingly in many areas, where one, you enable the talent. Second, you bring in the culture. And third, we build the knowledge capital into it. So one of my colleagues, fondly calls it, that Vidya Jajami, Vanayam. And now we call it like, AI Jajami Vanayam because AI is the new knowledge and that makes you humble. So organizations are taking that into consideration. Second, models have also evolved. We all talk about large language models, but we also see that for inward-facing functions, you don't really need to go towards a large language model. You can actually have it with a small language model. So that also solves a bit of your computing requirements, right? And third, once you have those models, how do you choose the models to work, right? So that's where responsible AI, trust, operationalization, how do you manage the infrastructure comes into picture, whether everybody who is using the AI has been trained in a manner that it doesn't yield wrong results or it doesn't impact your brand, etc. And finally, the agentic architecture itself has evolved. So we are trying to recreate the way humans work in a team. So you might have a worker agent to a supervisor agent to somebody who's orchestrating it, right? So all of them go hand in glove with how humans operate today. So these are the interesting things that we are doing as an organization to help our clients in the GCC segment.
Thank you, Gauri. And I'll come to you for the AI literate. How can we make the entire community? Thank you so much. So we have 5 minutes on the clock. I'll do a quick lightning round of use cases with all the panelists. Mohit, starting with you. So life sciences also has various stages in the journey, right? You spoke about how to ease the access for patient, but what about, say, drug discovery or patient monitoring? Where does AI step in these cases?
So one thing that we've started to see is if you really look at the broader life cycle of a drug, right? It starts from research to development to manufacturing and commercialization of that particular product. And then you also have to take care of your employees to get these tools, right? So in all the 5 areas, we've been using AI, right? From a research perspective, if you look at the small molecules, a good 100% of the new small molecules that are going to come in through a AI co-designed software along with a human. And always the human is in the loop, right? Drug development, I've already talked about. We are seeing anywhere between 5 to 10x, acceleration over there. Commercialization is again a good use case where there are so many new therapies that have come in post-COVID that it's difficult for the doctors to keep up with it. So how do we give them the content at the right time that they can understand? And then eventually building a drug or a product, but not getting a patient to it that the physician cannot prescribe to will be difficult, right? So I think that's again where we've started to use a lot of the CRM technology to say, guys, how do we curate that information to the need of the particular physician who can then subscribe to the particular patient? On manufacturing, the yield of products is something that we are seeing today. There are thousands of attributes that are required to build a particular product. We found use cases where for the same amount of quantity, we are able to generate more yield and serve around 20, 30,000 patients more that we could not do in the past.
True.
And then employee becomes an important part of all the technologies and tools over there. So
Center of all of your technology implementations. Perfect. Thank you, Mohit. Vikram, is there a way your GCC is enabling or using AI to say optimize or enhance efficiency in payment ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think our engineers in Bangalore over the years have built many number of solutions which are helping elevate efficiencies in the payment ecosystem, elevate security because that's a core concern for us in the payments arena. Specifically, I'll call out couple of two innovations which we've built at Visa. One is a solution called Visa Account to Account Protect. Last year, we announced this product which allows real-time fraud and risk assessment of peer-to-peer payments. Because the world, peer-to-peer payments are exploding the world. We are experiencing that here in India as well. So we built a solution which is demonstrating significantly higher fraud detection rates comparing to other systems, and that's behind it are AI and deep learning models in there. The other arena is authentication, right? Typically around the world, systems like OTPs, passwords have been prevalent, but the user experience around them and their capabilities are, have a lot to be desired. So we've now built biometric authentication systems called a product Visa Payment Passkey, which we announced last year, which again leverages AI to make authentication a lot better for our users. Finally, I'll also add to the statement that both Chandan and Gauri were talking about. While we've been deploying AI everywhere within the company, we've also instituted a data and AI principles, which ensure that as we are deploying AI increasingly across the company for our clients, for our employees, that fairness, transparency, and ethical considerations are right at the heart of it. So there is a flip side, and we have to watch how we deploy AI, and that's what we are doing in this space.
Thank you so much, Vikram. Gauri, coming to you again, as the AI adoption has increased now, there's a need for AI literate talent, most definitely, and that's what the concern of all the GCCs is also. How can organizations now build the right capabilities to navigate this shift, and how can we enable that the talent is accessible and available?
Yeah, so I mean, we live in the era, where we are not building football teams. That takes about 10 years, to gain efficiency and fitness. So looking at the demand that we have, for our talent base, if I see here Mohit, Vikram, and Chandan, right, they all belong to different industries. So, everybody who is working on the GCCs and, the scale in which they have to operate, we have created, personalized learning path for one, the industry you belong to, the function in which, you are working, and the technology that you are an expert at, right? So all three together, if you go manually to do that, it becomes difficult. So we've launched a product called LearnVantage that sort of uses AI and the techniques of AI and what the organization is meant to do and the function is meant to do and the person is meant to do, create a personalized learning path that also adapts itself as the role changes of the person or the individual in the organization. Second, it also takes into consideration the career aspirations of the person. So you might be doing something today, but as the technology is emerging, every other week, how that changes. And third, you have a lot of external sources of content, so we get lost in details. And this also helps you to sort of curate the content that is necessary for you, and go through that journey, go through the training and certifications, and then be part of a more productive organization. So that's where we are invested at right now.
Thank you, Gauri. And I'm going to take one last question with Chandan. Chandan, how do you think AI can completely transform the semiconductor manufacturing space to enable the growth of AI? Basically, AI to enable AI.
Hey, thanks for that question. As Vaishnavi said, it is AI for AI. Before I tell you the story of what AI for AI really means, let me give you some data. If you see, I'm just talking about the previous generation. Let's say you have iPhone 14 and you have a chipset inside that is really doing all the tasks for you. It's a 5 nanometer node chipset. And to build a chipset like that, it costs anywhere around $500 million to design and associated R&D. Now, you want to build a fab and manufacture it and do a mass productization and sell it across the world. It costs around $5 billion to build that fab and and make the chipset. Otherwise, it's too expensive to manufacture and do mass market. So if you look at the cost difference, it's basically 10x between chip R&D and the final manufacturing. So this itself says, hey, there is a huge opportunity where there is a 10x cost, and we are talking about adding more and more compute into those chipsets. That means the nodes are going to get advanced. They're not going to stop. But then if the manufacturing is so expensive, that means we are not able to produce so many chipsets. And if we don't produce chipsets, AI adoption is really low. So with that as a input, let me tell you the supply side. And everybody knows NVIDIA story here. It's basically a $3.3 trillion market capitalization today, which is a design house. And then let me take the other manufacturing house, which is TSMC. They are at $1 trillion market capitalization. So put together, it's $4.3 trillion in the semiconductor ecosystem, just two biggies. So if that's the case, there is no dearth of investment. For sure, there is enough investment and people believe this will happen. And now when it comes to revenue, that's basically where everybody questions AI. Are companies making enough money? Are they making revenue? At least from the recent reports, as I see, some of the companies in the ecosystem have already started showcasing their AI chipset revenue, which kind of goes to 15 to 20% now, but then probably would scale much higher in future. So in terms of the ecosystem, yes, there is enough investment, there is enough expectation, and there is willingness to go next. And towards that, AI can enable in key three areas. The first area I would say is building the next generation process. When I say next generation process, this is the process node that moves from 5 to 3 nanometer, 3 nanometer to 1 nanometer, so that you can do more compute. How do we accelerate more process optimization? And it's not easy. It takes years to develop new process. The second aspect is, once I have developed the process, how do I control it? How do I make sure that I get the best yield? So that means you need advanced inspection and defect detection systems, which again need a lot of AI. It's just beyond human, because we are talking about nanometers. 10 to the power of -9 is the size of the defect. So you can probably it's like identifying an ant in Mumbai from space. This is the technology we are talking. And then when it comes to yield, how do I have the best yield for this chipset? That means you need to have the yield management or yield figured out from the days of chip design, not at the final manufacturing, which really increases the cost. So these three areas can really get disrupted by adoption of AI. And I would say they are already disrupting. In future, it will be even more. So in terms of AI adoption, if it doesn't happen at the semiconductor ecosystem level itself, it is not really going to help us in terms of building those chipsets which have more compute power and affordable, low-cost chips which can really generate more interest in terms of AI adoption.
Thank you so much, Chandan, and you also touched on AI ROI. So thank you so much. But it's evident now, and AI and automation is going to lead the charge in the transformation of GCCs and how to add more high-value projects to your portfolio. These gentlemen have been generous with their case studies, and they've shared it with everyone. So thank you so much, and thank you. You've been a lovely audience. Ridhima, over to you.